I didn't want to play him. It was an odd thing. Not because he was negative.
In 2020, Al Pacino's heart stopped. Doctors brought him back, but the man who returned was changed forever. Today, at 84 years old, the legendary actor who once ruled Hollywood now lives a life darker than any role he ever played. After losing $50 million, taking movie roles he openly hates just to survive, and becoming a father again at 83 to a woman 54 years younger, Pacino now faces a future he never imagined, filled with loneliness, fear, and painful regrets. How did the greatest actor of our time end up here? Stay with us as we uncover the heartbreaking truth behind Al Pacino's life today. The unlikely rise of a legend.
I don't know what to say, really.
Al Pacino was born on April 25, 1940, in East Harlem, New York City. His parents, Rose Girardi and Salvatore Pacino, were Sicilian immigrants trying to build a better future in America. But life did not unfold as they dreamed. When Pacino was only 2 years old, his father left and moved to California to work as an insurance salesman. That sudden absence forced his mother to raise him alone in the South Bronx, with the support of his grandparents, Kate and James Girardi, who had come from Corleone, Sicily, a town that would later become famous because of The Godfather. Life in the Bronx during the 1940s and 1950s was far from easy. Poverty lingered around every corner. Pacino grew up feeling the emptiness of not having a father figure, but his mother gave him something priceless. She was deeply passionate about movies and often brought young Pacino to theaters. The screen became a magical escape for him. Even before he could fully understand what acting meant, those story-filled nights planted a dream in his heart. As he grew older, Pacino, known as Sonny among his friends, developed a rebellious streak. By the age of 9, he was already smoking and drinking. By 13, he was experimenting with marijuana. School did not interest him, and trouble followed him wherever he went. He was kicked out of multiple schools before enrolling in the High School of Performing Arts. It seemed like the perfect place for a kid with acting dreams. But the pressure at home grew heavier. After a heated argument with his mother about his future, he dropped out at 17. With no diploma, no stable job, and barely any direction, Pacino drifted through the streets alongside friends who lived wild and dangerous lives. Some eventually turned to drugs that took their lives away. 3 of his closest friends, Cliffy, Bruce, and Petey, died from overdoses before they even reached adulthood. Pacino later admitted that acting might have been the only thing that saved him from the same fate. Then tragedy struck deeper than ever. In 1962, when Pacino was 22, his mother passed away at only 43. The heartbreak crushed him. A year later, his grandfather James, his father figure, also died. In just 1 year, Pacino lost the 2 people he loved more than anyone else. He later called that time the lowest point of my life. Years later, in his memoir titled Sonny Boy, named after his mother's special nickname for him, he wrote, "If I am lucky enough, perhaps I'll reunite with my mother there. All I want is the chance to walk up to her and simply say, 'Hey Ma, see what happened to me?'" With grief swallowing him, Pacino threw all his remaining energy into acting. But this path was anything but glamorous. He worked odd jobs, janitor, busboy, messenger, postal clerk, just to pay for acting classes. He trained at HB Studio, where he met Charlie Lawton, a mentor who encouraged him relentlessly. Money was tight. Some nights he slept in theaters or on friends' couches. Other nights he slept outside with nothing but his dreams to keep him warm. The tide finally began to shift in 1968 when he starred in The Indian Wants the Bronx, an off-Broadway play by Israel Horovitz. Pacino poured his raw emotions into the role of Murph, a troubled and dangerous youth. The audience felt the authenticity behind every move he made. Critics praised him. He earned the Obie Award for Best Actor, while his co-star John Cazale won Best Supporting Actor. The play ran 177 performances, an incredible success for an unknown actor. But beyond the applause, something even more important happened backstage. The production was paired with another play starring Jill Clayburgh, Pacino's romantic partner at the time. Through their circle, he met Martin Bregman, the man who would change his life forever. Bregman saw a fire inside Pacino that others missed. He became Pacino's manager and would later help him secure iconic roles like Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, and, of course, The Godfather. In 1969, Pacino made his Broadway debut in Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie? He played Bickham, a young drug addict hiding trauma behind a tough exterior. The show did not run long, only 39 performances after 9 previews, but critics could not ignore Pacino's talent. Variety named him the most promising new Broadway actor, and at just 29, he won the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Play. His rise had begun. His emotional depth came from intense training. Pacino studied at the Actors Studio under Lee Strasberg, a legend of method acting. Strasberg pushed actors to use their deepest real emotions to create truth on stage. Pacino later said that learning from Strasberg gave him the courage to fully commit his life to acting. Then came the biggest challenge of his career, The Godfather. Today, Al Pacino, as Michael Corleone, is considered one of the greatest performances in film history. But in 1971, almost no one wanted him for the role. Paramount wanted a tall, famous leading man, Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, or Robert Redford. Pacino had only one small film credit and looked too quiet, too average, too un-Hollywood. Francis Ford Coppola refused to listen. He had watched Pacino on stage and saw the perfect Michael Corleone, a man who transforms from an innocent war hero into a cold mafia boss. Coppola fought the studio executives endlessly. At one point, Paramount even tested James Caan to replace Pacino entirely. Even after production started, the studio hated the early footage and demanded Coppola fire Pacino. But Pacino stayed, and he worked, and slowly, the transformation began. The world would soon witness the birth of a legend. The battle to prove his greatness.
Okay.
And then he come back. Coppola knew that if Al Pacino didn't deliver something extraordinary immediately, the studio would pull him from The Godfather. Their patience was gone. Their faith was non-existent. So Coppola made a bold move. He filmed the restaurant assassination scene far earlier than planned. It was Michael Corleone's turning point, the moment the quiet war hero crossed a line that would define the rest of his life. When Paramount executives watched the footage, everything changed. They finally saw what Coppola saw all along. Pacino wasn't just a good choice. He was the only choice. In that small Italian restaurant, with a gun shaking in his hand and a cold transformation settling into his eyes, Pacino proved that a legend was being born. The performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, though many protested that he should have been in the Best Actor category. Feeling overlooked and disrespected, Pacino boycotted the ceremony, his silent protest against being underestimated once again. But whether he attended or not, the world now knew his name. The Godfather made over $250 million from a tiny $6 million budget and went on to win Best Picture. Pacino's portrayal, filled with quiet intensity and terrifying restraint, became iconic. With just one stare, he could show a lifetime of anger, pain, and power. That look across the dinner table before pulling the trigger became one of the most unforgettable moments in film history. But while the world saw brilliance, Pacino was terrified behind the scenes. Every day he feared being fired. He said later that the pressure was crushing, that he often doubted whether he belonged in Hollywood at all. During the filming of a getaway scene, he severely injured his ankle and collapsed in pain. Instead of fear, his first reaction was relief, because he thought the injury might end his misery of constant judgment. He needed injections just to stand, but he kept going. Coppola saw the panic behind Pacino's eyes and stepped in to protect him. He rearranged the shooting schedule to give Pacino more breathing room. Diane Keaton, who played Kay Adams, became his emotional lifeline, making him laugh after the most brutal takes. Without that support, Pacino believed he might have never gotten through the film. Pacino's momentum accelerated with Serpico in 1973. He portrayed Frank Serpico, a real NYPD officer who risked his life to expose corruption in his own department. Pacino shadowed the real Serpico for days, studying his voice, his walk, his frustration with a system broken beyond repair. The filming stretched through the hot New York summer, guided by director Sidney Lumet's fast-paced style. The tension was real, nearly overwhelming, but the result was astonishing. Pacino received another Academy Award nomination and won the Golden Globe for Best Actor. With a small budget, the film still earned nearly $30 million and cemented Pacino as one of Hollywood's most fearless performers. Then came one of the boldest roles of his life, 1983. A film that today is quoted, parodied, worshipped, Scarface. Directed by Brian De Palma and written by Oliver Stone, the movie followed Tony Montana, a Cuban man who claws his way from nothing into a violent world of money and power. Pacino shaped Tony's identity himself, the accent, the swagger, the rage. It was all deeply researched. He trained with Cuban immigrants, learning their rhythm, their survival instincts. During one action scene, he grabbed the barrel of a hot gun and badly burned his hand, halting filming for days. Even pain couldn't stop his commitment. But the movie ignited a firestorm. Critics despised its profanity and graphic violence. Protesters in Miami demanded that production stop, furious about the portrayal of Cuban immigrants as criminals. Some powerful voices in Hollywood turned their backs on it. Even celebrated author Kurt Vonnegut walked out of a screening in disgust. At first, Scarface seemed like a disaster. Then something unexpected happened. Audiences found it, treasured it, quoted it. Tony Montana, flawed, brutal, larger than life, became a symbol of ambition, a warning, and a fantasy all at once. The movie made over $66 million and kept climbing over the years. Hip-hop artists embraced its theme of rising from poverty by any means necessary. Posters covered college dorms, video games, fashion, music. Scarface influenced everything. The line, "Say hello to my little friend," became one of the most iconic phrases ever spoken on screen. Pacino had become unstoppable. 1992 finally brought him the honor he deserved, the Academy Award for Best Actor, for his performance in Scent of a Woman. He played Frank Slade, a blind, bitter army officer whose loud voice and deep sadness hid years of pain. To play blindness convincingly, Pacino wore special contact lenses that blocked his sight. He carried his cane even off camera, bumping into walls and forgetting familiar paths just so the struggle would be real. His portrayal wasn't just emotional, it was human. In the famous tango scene, when he glides across the floor with elegance despite his blindness, audiences saw both strength and vulnerability in perfect harmony. His powerful "hoo-ah" became a cultural catchphrase. Years later, in 2018, Pacino shocked everyone again with a role that divided the world, Paterno. The HBO film told the story of Joe Paterno, a football coaching legend whose entire legacy crumbled during the Penn State child abuse scandal. Pacino portrayed a man torn between glory and guilt, confused and crushed by the truth he had ignored for too long. The real Paterno died just months after being fired, leaving behind unanswered questions that the film dared to explore. 300 players protested, claiming Paterno was a scapegoat. But Pacino didn't try to convince viewers to love or hate him. He forced them to feel the weight of complicity, through fear, through controversy, through roles that pushed boundaries. Al Pacino kept proving one thing: a legacy built on passion and perseverance.
And I know you're
Yes.
uncomfortable with this sort of
Oh,
thing.
yes.
So I very much appreciate your being here. I really
Thank
do.
you. I'm
And-
very-
Al Pacino once again stepped into controversy in 2013 with HBO's film Phil Spector. By this point in his career, Pacino had become known not only for choosing powerful roles, but also for his willingness to portray deeply complicated men. Phil Spector was no different. The legendary music producer, famous for revolutionizing sound in the 1960s, with the wall of sound technique, was also infamous for his eccentric and increasingly disturbing behavior. His life took a darker turn in 2003 when he was accused of murdering actress Lana Clarkson inside his mansion. The world was stunned. Was this a case of misunderstood brilliance or true violence hidden behind fame? The film chose not to turn the story into a typical courtroom drama. Instead, it focused on Spector's fragile humanity and his emotional unraveling as the world judged him. Helen Mirren portrayed his defense attorney, Linda Kenny Baden, who faced her own doubts about whether her client could receive a fair trial. Pacino's performance showed a man slipping away from reality, desperate to cling to his legacy. The movie refused to excuse him, but it also refused to offer easy answers. Audiences were left unsettled, forced to confront the question that surrounded Spector until the very end of his life. Was he a genius, a monster, or both? While Pacino convincingly portrayed a man losing control of his life, he was facing a real financial nightmare of his own. In 2011, he discovered that he had lost $50 million. His longtime accountant, Kenneth Starr, a man trusted by some of the biggest celebrities in Hollywood, had been operating a Ponzi scheme. Pacino returned from a luxurious European vacation, believing his fortune was secure, only to learn it had vanished. Starr had been praised for decades as a financial mastermind, yet behind closed doors, he funneled money away from his clients, using their fortunes to maintain an illusion of success. When the scheme collapsed, the losses were catastrophic. Starr was arrested and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Pacino, who for years had earned millions per film, suddenly found himself almost starting over. In his memoir, Sonny Boy, Pacino recalled the shock he felt. "I had $50 million, and then I had nothing." Every luxury he had once taken for granted became a painful reminder of how quickly life can change. To rebuild, he accepted roles he would never have considered before. He starred in Jack and Jill, a comedy he openly admitted was strictly for the paycheck. He accepted paid speaking events and commercial work. It was a humbling period, one he later described as a crazy montage of loss. Yet through all of it, he found purpose again. Hardship taught him something that years of fame had not: resilience. Beyond acting, Pacino sought to explore the philosophy behind performance. Acting wasn't merely a job for him, it was a calling. That passion drove him toward directing. His most ambitious directing project arrived in 1996, Looking for Richard. More than a film, it was a passionate argument for the continued importance of Shakespeare. Pacino chose Richard III, a story of ambition and power, themes he knew well. He blended documentary-style interviews with dramatic reenactments, featuring actors like Alec Baldwin, Winona Ryder, and Kevin Spacey. The result was unlike anything audiences had seen before. The film won the Directors Guild of America Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in a Documentary in 1997. Critics praised Pacino for making Shakespeare exciting and relevant. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone called the movie a great adventure and outrageous fun. 4 years later, in 2000, he directed Chinese Coffee, a much quieter and more intimate project. Adapted from a play he had performed on stage in 1992, the movie followed two friends arguing throughout a single night in Greenwich Village in 1982. Jerry Orbach starred alongside Pacino, and together they delivered a story driven entirely by conversation and emotional weight. Though it received limited distribution, those who saw it recognized its authenticity. It eventually became part of the 2007 box set, Pacino, An Actor's Vision. His work behind the camera also reflected his commitment to the craft he devoted his life to. Since 2000, Pacino has served as co-president of the Actors Studio, the legendary institution where he once trained under masters like Lee Strasberg. Working alongside Ellen Burstyn and Harvey Keitel, Pacino ensures the studio continues its mission, teaching passionate actors to explore themselves deeply and courageously through performance. The Actors Studio has shaped icons: Marilyn Monroe, Paul Newman, James Dean, Jack Nicholson, and Pacino is now one of the guardians of that legacy. He reminds students that acting requires more than technique. It demands curiosity, philosophy, and an understanding of life itself. While his career was defined by decades of iconic characters, Pacino never embraced one tradition often associated with love and family: marriage. Despite long-term relationships with Diane Keaton, Beverly D'Angelo, and Kathleen Quinlan, he never took that step. In Sonny Boy, he confessed that marriage felt like an entrance to the pain train. His romance with Diane Keaton, which began during the filming of The Godfather in 1972, captured the hearts of fans. She loved him, admired him, and remained dedicated to the relationship for years. But Pacino remained distant when it came to lifelong commitment.
You and everything don't know how to rehearse. That is an important fact.
During the production of The Godfather Part 3 in 1990, Keaton presented him with an ultimatum: marriage or goodbye. Pacino refused, and she walked away. His relationship with Kathleen Quinlan in 1979 came even closer to marriage. They traveled across Europe together and seemed inseparable. Pacino later admitted she was the woman he nearly married, but fear stood in the way. Years afterward, he still felt the heartache of that decision. Even with these complicated romances, fatherhood became one of the most meaningful roles of his life. He has 4 children, and his journey with each of them reflects his deep desire to give the love he never received from his absentee father. In June 2023, at the age of 83, Pacino welcomed his 4th child, a son named Roman, with 39-year-old Noor Al-Falah. Their relationship began during the pandemic, but became public in April 2022. The 54-year age difference shocked the world, especially after Pacino reportedly requested a paternity test because he did not believe he could father children anymore. Once confirmed, he embraced his son with joy. Roman was Noor's first child, but Pacino already had 3 children: twins, Anton James and Olivia Rose, born in 2001 with Beverly D'Angelo. His eldest daughter, Julie Marie, born in 1989 with acting coach Jan Tarrant. His own father left him at just 2 years old, and Pacino refused to repeat that abandonment. Even after separating from Al-Falah, he remains active in Roman's life. They spend time together, and Pacino even plays harmonica during their video calls. Despite age, despite challenges, despite loss, even now, every role he chooses reveals the same hunger he had as a young actor in the Bronx. Acting didn't just give him fame, it saved him. He has spoken openly about a terrifying moment in 2020 when he nearly died. His pulse stopped. Paramedics revived him. Afterward, he said the experience convinced him that there is no afterlife. For Pacino, this life, everything he has built, is all that exists. At 84 years old, he continues to reflect on his journey and the twists of fate that shaped it. He never lived the traditional life. He made choices that confused many, but he also created a legacy built from passion, survival, and truth. Millions admire him not because he followed the rules, but because he never let rules define him. From a boy roaming the streets of the South Bronx to a man who changed cinema forever, Al Pacino remains one of the most fearless figures Hollywood has ever seen.
These audiences would come in, I don't know what you call them.
From the darkest corners of the Bronx to the brightest stages in Hollywood, Al Pacino proved that greatness is not given, it is earned. His story reminds us that even through loss, doubt, and controversy, passion can still shape a legend. What is your favorite Al Pacino performance? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.